March 3rd, 1902. In a modest cabin on Creek Nation land in Indian Territory, a baby's cry pierced the Oklahoma dawn. Sarah Rector had entered a world that would never be ready for her extraordinary destiny. Born to parents who had endured the shackles of slavery, this newborn would shatter every assumption about race, wealth, and power in early 20th century America. Her birth certificate bore the stark reality of her era. Sarah Rector, colored, born to Joe and Rose Rector, former slaves of Creek chief Opethleahola. Yet within the folds of that simple document lay the seeds of a revolution that would transform a barefoot girl into America's most talked about millionaire, challenging the very foundations of a segregated society. How did a child born into the remnants of slavery become richer than most white industrialists? How did a young black girl in Jim Crow America amass a fortune that would make modern billionaires envious? Sarah Rector's story is not merely one of luck. It is a testament to resilience, a mirror reflecting America's deepest contradictions, and a tale so extraordinary that newspapers across the nation struggled to believe it was real. To understand Sarah's miraculous ascent, we must first descend into the darkness from which she emerged. Her parents, Joe and Rose Rector, had been enslaved by Creek chief Opethleahola, a Native American leader who, like many tribal chiefs, had adopted the Southern practice of slavery. When the Civil War erupted, Opethleahola made a fateful decision that would echo through generations. He sided with the Union. This choice came at a devastating cost. Confederate forces, furious at his betrayal, launched brutal attacks against his people. In the winter of 1861, thousands of Creek families, including enslaved African Americans, were forced to flee their homes in a desperate exodus toward Kansas. The journey became known as the Trail of Blood on Ice, a march of death where hundreds perished from starvation, disease, and Confederate raids. Joe and Rose Rector survived this nightmare, but freedom brought new challenges. When slavery ended, the Creek Nation faced a dilemma: what to do with their former slaves? The solution came through the Treaty of 1866, which granted citizenship and land allotments to freed slaves within Creek territory. Each freedman was promised 160 acres of land, a promise that would transform young Sarah's life in ways no one could have imagined. Sarah's childhood was marked by poverty and hardship. The Rector family scratched out a meager existence on their allotted land near Taft, Oklahoma. Their small farm yielded little, and Joe Rector worked odd jobs to keep food on the table. Sarah attended the local one-room schoolhouse when she could, but often stayed home to help with chores and care for her younger siblings. The land assigned to the Rector family seemed worthless, rocky, difficult to farm, and located in what appeared to be the middle of nowhere. Local white farmers mocked the worthless creek land, never suspecting that beneath those rocky fields lay one of the richest oil deposits in American history. In 1913, when Sarah was just 11 years old, an oil company approached the Creek Nation with a proposition. They wanted to lease drilling rights on various plots of land, including the seemingly barren acreage assigned to the Rector family. The lease agreement seemed modest. Sarah would receive royalties if oil was discovered on her 160-acre allotment. Nobody expected what happened next. On a scorching summer day in 1913, the drill bit penetrated deep into Sarah's land and struck liquid gold. Oil gushed skyward in a spectacular display that could be seen for miles. But this was no ordinary oil well. It was a gusher that produced over 2,500 barrels per day, an astronomical amount that dwarfed most other wells in the region. The transformation was instantaneous and shocking. Sarah Rector, the 11-year-old daughter of former slaves, was suddenly earning more money in a single day than most white families made in an entire year. Within months, her daily income exceeded $300, equivalent to nearly $8,000 per day in today's currency. By her 12th birthday, Sarah's annual income had reached $15,000, making her one of the wealthiest individuals in Oklahoma. News of the colored girl millionaire spread like wildfire across America. Newspapers from New York to California featured headlines that seemed too incredible to believe. Richest colored girl in the world lives in shack. Oil makes slave's daughter richer than Rockefeller's children. And barefoot millionaire attends one-room school. The discovery sent shockwaves through white supremacist ideology. How could a black child, the daughter of former slaves, possessed more wealth than established white families who had built their fortunes over generations. The cognitive dissonance was so severe that many white Americans simply refused to believe the reports were true. The reaction to Sarah's wealth revealed the deep-seated racism that permeated American society. White newspapers struggled with how to report her story, often emphasizing her race in ways that suggested her wealth was somehow illegitimate or temporary. Headlines frequently included racial descriptors that would never have been used for white millionaires of the same age. Local white families in Oklahoma were particularly disturbed by the reversal of economic hierarchy. Sarah Rector, a girl they had considered inferior based solely on her race, now possessed more financial power than their entire community combined. Some whites attempted to have her land seized, claiming that black individuals were incapable of managing such wealth responsibly. The federal government, recognizing the potential for exploitation, appointed a white guardian to oversee Sarah's finances. This decision reflected the paternalistic attitudes of the era. Even as a millionaire, Sarah was deemed incapable of managing her own affairs because of her age and race. The guardian, T.J. Porter, was tasked with ensuring her education and protecting her assets from those who would seek to defraud her. But Sarah's story also inspired and amazed many Americans who saw in her success a glimmer of hope for racial progress. African-American newspapers celebrated her achievement as proof that Black Americans could succeed when given equal opportunities. The Chicago Defender, one of the most influential Black newspapers, regularly featured updates on Sarah's life, portraying her as a symbol of possibility in an age of limited opportunities for people of color. International attention followed. European newspapers picked up the story, fascinated by this uniquely American tale of a former slave's daughter achieving extraordinary wealth. Some foreign observers used Sarah's story to critique American racial hierarchies, questioning how a nation that proclaimed equality could simultaneously maintain systems of segregation and discrimination. With great wealth came great complications. Sarah's mailbox overflowed with thousands of letters from fortune seekers, marriage proposals, and requests for financial assistance. Men from across the country wrote elaborate letters proposing marriage to the teenage millionaire, some including photographs and detailed descriptions of their intentions. Many of these suitors were white men who, despite societal taboos against interracial relationships, were willing to overlook racial barriers for access to Sarah's fortune. The attention was overwhelming and often frightening. Sarah's family hired security guards and moved multiple times to escape the constant harassment. Photographers followed her to school, merchants offered her expensive goods in hopes of securing her business, and entrepreneurs pitched investment schemes designed to separate her from her money. Educational opportunities that had been denied to most Black children suddenly became available to Sarah. Private tutors were hired, and she was enrolled in exclusive boarding schools. The irony was stark. Her wealth had purchased access to educational institutions that would have rejected her solely based on her race just years earlier. Sarah's social position became uniquely complex. She was simultaneously celebrated and isolated, wealthy yet constrained by racial barriers that money alone could not overcome. Despite her fortune, she could not stay in many hotels, eat in most restaurants, or attend theaters in the white sections of cities she visited. Her wealth was undeniable, but her race remained a barrier that no amount of money could completely dissolve. The psychological impact of such attention and responsibility on a young girl cannot be understated. Sarah was forced to mature rapidly, learning to navigate complex financial and social situations that would challenge adults. She developed a keen awareness of how others viewed her, not simply as a child or even as an individual, but as a symbol of racial possibility and economic disruption. As Sarah matured, she began to take more control over her financial empire. By age 18, she had expanded her holdings significantly, purchasing additional oil properties and investing in real estate across Oklahoma and Kansas. Her business acumen surprised those who had assumed her success was purely accidental. Sarah diversified her investments wisely, purchasing farmland, urban real estate, and stock in various corporations. She understood intuitively that oil wealth could be temporary and worked to build sustainable, long-term income sources. Her investment portfolio grew to include properties in Muskogee, Kansas City, and Los Angeles. In 1922, Sarah married Kenneth Campbell, a businessman who shared her entrepreneurial spirit. Their wedding was a lavish affair that attracted national attention, with newspapers describing the elaborate ceremony and expensive gifts. The couple settled in Kansas City, where Sarah continued to expand her business interests while also supporting various charitable causes within the Black community. Sarah's philanthropic efforts were extensive, but often conducted quietly. She funded scholarships for Black students, supported churches and community centers, and provided financial assistance to families in need. Her giving reflected a deep understanding of the responsibilities that came with her unprecedented wealth and position in society. The couple had 3 sons, and Sarah was determined to provide them with opportunities while also teaching them the value of hard work and social responsibility. She established trust funds for each child, but insisted they receive proper educations and develop their own careers rather than simply relying on inherited wealth. Despite her success, Sarah faced ongoing challenges that highlighted the persistent nature of racial discrimination in America. Business partners sometimes attempted to cheat her, assuming that her race and gender made her an easy target. Legal battles were frequent as she fought to protect her interests and maintain control over her assets. The oil industry itself was notoriously difficult for outsiders to navigate, and Sarah faced additional obstacles as a Black woman in a field dominated by white men. She learned to be shrewd in negotiations, surrounding herself with competent advisors, while ultimately making her own decisions about major investments and business strategies. Sarah's success also created tension within some segments of the Black community. Some criticized her for not being more publicly vocal about civil rights issues, while others felt she should use her platform more aggressively to challenge racial barriers. The expectations placed upon her were enormous. She was expected to represent not just herself, but the potential of her entire race. Health challenges emerged as Sarah aged, possibly related to the enormous stress she had carried from such a young age. The constant attention, financial pressures, and social isolation took their toll. Yet she continued to manage her business empire with skill and determination, proving repeatedly that her success was no accident. Sarah Rector passed away in 1967 at the age of 65, leaving behind an estate valued at over $1 million, a substantial fortune even by the standards of the 1960s. Her death marked the end of an era, but her legacy continued to inspire and challenge American assumptions about race, wealth, and opportunity. Her story had profound implications for how Americans understood the relationship between race and economic success. Sarah's wealth had been undeniable, her business acumen proven, and her success sustained over decades. She had shattered the myth that Black Americans were inherently incapable of managing significant financial resources or building lasting wealth. The legal precedents established during Sarah's lifetime regarding the rights of Black property owners and investors would prove important in later civil rights battles. Her success demonstrated that when systemic barriers were removed or circumvented, Black Americans could achieve extraordinary results in business and finance. Sarah's descendants continued to benefit from the empire she had built, with several becoming successful professionals and entrepreneurs in their own right. The family's continued prosperity served as a multi-generational testament to the transformative power of economic opportunity. Sarah Rector's journey from slave's daughter to millionaire oil tycoon remains one of the most remarkable stories in American history. Her life illuminated the artificial nature of racial hierarchies while simultaneously revealing the persistent power of systemic discrimination. She succeeded not because American society was fair, but in spite of its unfairness. Her story raises profound questions about what America might have achieved if more Black Americans had been given similar opportunities. How many potential entrepreneurs, inventors, and business leaders were lost to slavery, segregation, and systematic exclusion from economic participation? Sarah's success suggests that the answer is far too many. The richest colored girl in the world, as newspapers called her, had proven that talent, determination, and opportunity could overcome even the most entrenched barriers. Her legacy serves as both inspiration and indictment. Inspiration for what individuals can achieve when given a chance, an indictment of systems that deny such chances to millions of others. More than a century after oil first gushed from her land, Sarah Rector's story continues to resonate, In an era when discussions of wealth inequality and racial justice dominate American discourse, her extraordinary life serves as a powerful reminder that the barriers to success are often artificial, and that when those barriers fall, the results can be truly revolutionary. Sarah Rector died a millionaire, but she lived as something even more valuable, a pioneer who proved that America's promise of opportunity could extend beyond the boundaries of race, if only society had the courage to let it.